Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about transmission maintenance and how important it is. And then I'm going to go over the details of how I like to do my transmission maintenance before a big race. Or just a weekly show. Anytime I use the car, generally this is a check that I do. It's a very quick check, it doesn't take a lot. And these are some of the tools that you're going to need to do that, okay? I like to get some of the blue shop towels. Just so you don't really mind getting them dirty, throwing them away. A pair of good gloves. You know, some guys just don't care, but there's a lot of chemicals that we use. And I like to use generally a toothbrush with a lot of those chemicals and stuff, and there's a lot of mess that you get made with a toothbrush and some of our RC Circle Jerk approved CRC spray. They don't know that though. You're also going to need a good file. Another brush that you might be able to use for cleaning. In this case, I'm going to use my 1/16 driver. Okay, and then I'm just going to use my 3/16 nut driver. I've already went ahead and sped up the process. I've removed some of the screws already on this transmission. When I'm first taking apart a transmission, pulling it off the car, I like to look at the outdrives. As you can see, there's some wear from the dog bone. When that's an issue, generally you can't get the outdrive removed from the inner race inside of the transmission case. You know how sometimes they can get stuck? That's because that kind of buildup of material from being worn away won't allow you to pull that out. So if you take a hand file and you set it on the edge of the table, you don't have to press very hard. It only generally takes just a couple of passes. You just want to kind of clean those up. You helping? Alright, now we got those cleaned up. I want to go ahead and I've already removed my spur gear and the screw. I like to set my parts aside, take the case, and pull the opposite side of where my top shaft is coming out. Let's go ahead and pull that apart. Alright, and first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and look inside of the case. I'm looking for any kind of buildup of material, metal shavings. You can see all kinds of things. I've seen ball bearings, you don't know where they came from, missing things, you don't know where they went, anything. You're just looking for any kind of premature wear. Second step for me is I like to remove the top shaft. We'll set that aside. And I'm kind of weird, but I like to pull things out of the transmission and then kind of build them back the same way. So if the shaft is in a certain way here, I want to make sure that I actually put that back in the same orientation. And then the bearings I like to keep on the same side. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my ball diff. You can see that came right out of there. No issues, no hang up. Go ahead and set that aside. Inspect my case. I'm gonna look at my case. Not a whole lot going on in there. A little bit of buildup, nothing bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and set that aside. Ball diff wise, ball diff rebuilds for me, I just simply by feel. Some guys will do it every time, some guys will do it every couple of runs. I generally like to do it by feel. You can feel if you have a bad ball diff. If your build of the actual diff is really good, you'll notice that the longevity of how long your ball diff lasts becomes a lot longer. than what you would do is if you just slap the kit together. That I have learned for sure. So I'll go ahead and set that aside. Things I'm going to look at and pay attention to is the gears. And you can see there how there's a little bit tapering to that plastic gear versus a new gear. This is the gear that I'm going to replace that with. So, any kind of wear, I know that seems silly, but you'd much rather have a new gear in a race that matters than have one that you think might fail. So that's up to you. I know some guys like to push it, and they think if it's still, that's still good. And I would agree. It might be okay for a while, but personally I've stripped out too many gears in the past to just go ahead and change it out. It's a very cheap part. People don't buy enough idler gears. You should always have a couple in your bag anyways. And pay attention to. Do the preventative maintenance that's going to give you that advantage. Okay? So, we'll set that aside. A new gear. My next inspection is always going to be on my top shaft. This is a gear that it takes a lot of abuse. I push them not too far. I don't like pushing them very far. Any kind of extra slop inside of that transmission, I don't really like. I don't know how to explain it any more than just being kind of a slap effect. The looser everything is, when that initial strike of the torque of that motor hits, it's just hitting everything, I think, at a greater rate. I think it has a higher impact on things when you have more slack in those items. So, and it leads to faster wear. So the more worn out it is, the faster it wears out. In my eyes, that's how I feel. So, right, wrong, or otherwise. All right. So, since I got a bigger race coming up, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm just gonna go ahead and replace my bearings. Okay. So, I have my gears that I want to clean up. I have my ball diff that I'm going to clean up. And I'm going to use a new idler, so I can leave that right there. Okay. You can use, I've seen people use all kinds of different items. I just want to gently push that bearing out of there. These bearings are, in my eyes, not good enough for a big event, but they'd be just fine to reuse once I clean these up, you know, and anything else. Or I would feel just as good using these again if I had the time to clean them out. But to speed up that process, I'm going to go ahead and replace all my bearings. This is a good time to use your CRC spray. So I'll take some of that. I'll go ahead and spray that top shaft. Any of that oil that I have left over. Oh man, there's a lot coming out of that thing. All right. Grab my towel. Go ahead and dry that off. The good thing about that spray is it does evaporate really, really quick. You can use your air, canned air, or I like wiping them off, doing a good inspection. With the gears a little bit different. I like to take a toothbrush or any kind of brush you really got that has some really good teeth on it, and I'll just pull that across the gear in one direction. Okay. So this is where it's good to have those gloves on you. I'll set that down on the towel. Take that brush again. Rinse that out. Do that again. Go ahead and pull this stuff towards me. All right, and I don't want to get that. I don't want to go crazy because I don't want to get rid of any of the lube that I have in my ball diff. Okay, I don't want to destroy any of that. So it's mostly focused on just getting it on the brushes of the brush, and then just getting it on the teeth here. You don't want to get it anywhere else. So I do a quick inspection. It looks really good. I look at my got my gear here. Oh, there it is. Got a switcheroo on me. All right. Okay, this will. So highlight. That's the old one. This. All right. So I got my bearings. I go to the local hobby shop. I go to Thunder Road. Go down there. And I love that they sell these little sleeves of bearings because I just buy a whole sleeve. Makes it easy. I don't have to worry about it. Nice, easy way. If you're at the track, you don't have any kind of special tools. I like to take the out drive for these inner bearings, and this is just pops them right out of there. Okay, take those bearings. Set them aside. You might be able to use them again. Okay, now you're like, well, I don't have a tool to get these top ones out. I'll just take that top post and I do kind of I got a shim in here. I take this top shaft, give it a little bit of a wiggling motion, pull that bearing right out of there. All right, get that bad dog out of there. Set that aside. Now I can do my other bearing for my other side, same way. This is that on your top post. This is really the bearing that's taking the brunt of what's going on inside of that. With all the dirt and the debris, it's really the bearing that takes a lot of abuse, like the outdrive bearings. So it's good to just replace them when you can. Okay, now you're to that part where if you look at the transmission and you got some gunk buildup in there, it's a good time to go ahead and get rid of that. Okay? So go ahead and take a second here to look at the tools we got while I grab a couple things here. All right, it's really important. Get yourself some really good bearing oil. So I like to get my bearings ready. 2 outdrive bearings. Like I said, you buy them in the sleeve. You always have them. You might be a hero at the track if you had some and somebody needs some, or you might be a hero for yourself. You need 4 of their smaller bearings here. Get those out. People do them different ways. You can take the dust covers off of these bearings. You can go ahead and clean out all the gunk. And it's not even gunk, it's just the standard lubricant that the bearings come with that is a lot thicker, so there's a little bit more drag on the bearing. A lot of the guys will like to take the dust covers off, and you can use like a CRC spray and clean out all of the stock lubricant, and then install 1 drop of the high performance lubricant, and that bearing will spin just as good as a lot of your higher end bearings. The only thing that you see with the lower end bearing is the accuracy of how much of it is a true sphere. Some of your higher end bearings, that are ceramic, they hold up a higher tolerance. It's a better tolerance, so it's a lot smoother. That's why you pay a little bit more for those bearings. But we can get pretty close with the stock bearing at a lot lower cost. So I'm going to take my bearings, and all I'm going to do is, with everything in there, one drop, every bearing, and the side that I put the lube on goes to the inside. Because that lube dropped on the side of that dust cover, oil attracts dirt, dirt sticks, right? We have a problem there. So that's how I do that. Before I do that, though, take my rag, clean this out. You'll be able to see some of that. See all that? And I've been listening. A lot of the older guys say, use less lube. Use less lube. If you have an SC mod, I don't think that's a true statement. Those cars got a lot of high torque, a lot of high horsepower, so they kind of need a little bit more protection. But the 10th scale stuff, I think you can definitely get away with using a lot less lube. Those guys are definitely right when they say you don't need too much lube, and I'm going to show you what they mean by that. My other side is actually pretty clean, believe it or not. See the difference? So, okay, I got that. Clean my rings real quick. And like I said, this is just a real quick maintenance. You're at the track, you think you have a problem, or it's the night before, you don't know what's going on, right? You want to rule out everything. This is a good way to kind of do that. Let's go ahead and put my Alright, now I'm going to take my next one, the lube side inside. Alright, see that? Alright. And I use shims in my transmission, kind of take out some of that side slack that you get. Ball diff wise, some people, not all people use ball diffs. You just don't. Some people like gear diffs, and I think gear diffs definitely have their place. But if you do have a ball diff, or if you're going to use a ball diff for your first time, always remember that your adjustment screw inside the ball diff goes out the same side, okay? Same side of this long portion of your top shaft. Whatever side your spur gear goes on, that adjustment screw needs to be out that same way. It's always good to make a nice little double check before you put that thing together, because I've done it, and it's not fun. So, we got that, and get that far. I like to take Top Secret lube. Okay. Tried different things over the years. The long I don't know, 7 years I've been doing this now. Different things work, some things don't. I find this stuff to work pretty good. It's just kind of a little concoction that we got. Local hobby stores sell plenty of good lubes out there. There's tons of good lubes on the market, but you don't really need a lot. So that's it. That's all I'm going to use for that whole transmission. Okay. So make sure I double check. Good to go. Give it a couple good spins. All right. Now, I'm going to seal the deal. Feels nice and smooth. Now, after your first run with this, it's going to feel amazing. Everything's going to break in. Everything's going to seat. A lot of the guys, they like to clean out the bearings. Like I said, we'll be able to do a video of that. I'll be able to sit down and break down how you tear off the races without damaging them, the dust covers, and how to properly clean out your bearings, and what kind of different things you can get away with as far as lubricant. So just things I've learned, things that were taught to me, and I think maybe it's time that I share some of that stuff. So especially with some bearing lube, things that we've learned over the last couple of years. So all right. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining in on my video today. This is just kind of a real quick how-to video, how to maintenance your transmission at the track real quick. You're hearing kind of issues going on where you just get to the track and you start getting a little conscious of when's the last time I rebuilt that transmission. You can do something on the fly like this. You want to get a lot more elaborate is when you're going to get down into breaking down your new bearings, pulling out those dust covers, cleaning them all out, and then applying your lubricant. But other than that, you guys have any questions, don't forget to hit the like button, and get a chance to check out the podcast. All right? Circuit Jerks!